Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 21. The Caged Bird. Naruto and the other contestants stood in the middle of the Hidden Leafs arena, listening to Genma speak to the gathered audience, which consisted of civilians, shinobi, visiting nobles and dignitaries in the cage. The nobles were potential clients and Naruto knew that impressing them meant bringing his village prestige and building a positive reputation, leading to bigger and better things for him in the future. Alright, everyone except Neji Hyuga and Yugito ni head to the stands, Genma instructed. There's a place designated for you to watch the fights. Naruto looked around and saw the other contestants move away from the expansive battlefield. Sasuke wasn't among them, even though he was supposed to compete. As far as he knew, Sasuke wanted to test his limits and fighting against someone as strong as Gaara would be the perfect chance, even though it was very risky. Once Naruto and the others left, Neji and Yugito got ready to fight. Genma's posture was tense, fully aware of how badly the fight could go if it went out of hand. Let the first match begin. Neji activated the Byakugan. You will not win today. It is your fate to fail that fool you call Raikage. Yugito only smiled. I don't believe in fate. She charged and sent her fist flying towards Neji's jaw. Neji's hands glowed bright blue as he slapped Yugito's hand away, following up with a two-fingered strike to her shoulder. Yugito pulled her shoulder back to avoid the strike but Neji's rear hand moved forward, delivering a palm strike to Yugito's lead shoulder. Yugito took the hit in stride, snapping her rear leg forward for a roundhouse kick, one Neji avoided by sweeping his arm below Yugito's approaching leg and forcing it up, driving his other hand forward to hit Yugito's flank. She regained her balance and bent at a 90-degree angle before performing a modified backflip, landing on her feet. Neji didn't give her a chance to recover as he moved to Yugito's position in a flash, hands moving at an intense pace as he attempted to debilitate her. Yugito was able to keep up, using both her hands to swat away Neji's as she looked for an opening. But she couldn't find any. Neji had trained himself above and beyond his limits preparing for the fight, honing his body and mind in order to come away from this fight the victor. It was working as he put Yugito on the defensive. He got his chance as Yugito took a second too long to dodge his first strike, giving him ample opportunity to drive a hand saturated with chakra into her stomach. Neji allowed a smirk to come to his face. You never stood a chance. Yugito grinned toothily, blood trickling down her chin. You aren't that bad. I might have to. Neji aimed for her throat, only for Yugito to jump away. She spat out blood. Get serious. Blue fire in the shape of cat's paws wrapped around both her hands before she returned to the fight. Neji didn't go for the kill this time, gauging the effectiveness of Yugito's technique and waiting for the right moment to strike. He ignored the stinging burn emanating from his forearm as he batted Yugito's paw away, hopping backwards to keep his chest from being slashed and burnt. Yugito kept the pressure up as she delivered glancing blows to Neji's thighs and forearms. She went for a feint, aiming high with one paw before turning on the spot and slashing sideways. Just as she was about to connect, Neji spun like a top, chakra pouring from every one of his chakra points to create a dome that sent Yugito flying. She landed with a crash, immediately springing upwards into a crouching position. Neji held his hand out, poised to strike at a moment's notice. I would have recommended you to spare yourself and your village a painful and costly humiliation by giving up. But the opportunity is too great. If I defeat you, I need only defeat your comrade, a weaker opponent, and your attempts at harvesting the Byakugan will end. Yugito chuckled. We're not here for the Byakugan. I don't know about Lord Raikage, but I know if I were him, I would have dismissed it as a lost cause. It would be better to create an alliance with the Leaf Village than gain another enemy. Is that so? Neji's brow furrowed. I wouldn't count out that arrogant fool trying to subvert his fate. I'm tired of you talking about fate, Yugito said, moving into a standing position. The only fate is the fate that you make. Neji scoffed. You don't understand. Neji moved forward, continuing the fight and aiming to end it as quickly as possible. He avoided Yugito's paw swipes and struck her tenketsu, sealing up her chakra flow. Yugito continued to fight even as it became more and more difficult to gather her chakra to her limbs. When Yugito aimed a high kick, Neji sealed the chakra points around her knee, locking it in place and freezing the entire leg. You are within range of my divination. The symbol of the 8 trigrams, a yin-yang symbol with green highlights surrounded by 2 green circles of increasing size, appeared below them. 8 trigrams. 64 palms. Neji's hands flashed, sealing Yugito's chakra points as went from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 strikes. Neji stepped forward, battering Yugito as hard as he could for each and every one of his 64 strikes. She was launched into the air, hitting the ground with a hard thud and not getting up. People's destinies are decided as soon as they are born, Neji began as he began to approach Yugito. Some are meant to rule, others meant to serve. It was this destiny that led to my father being sacrificed in place of his twin, just because he was born a few seconds after him. He was branded with a seal that destined him to a life of servitude to the main branch of our clan. But, my father wouldn't have to have been sacrificed if the Cloud Village didn't try to abduct my cousin. She is a failure of a shinobi, but she isn't to blame either. Your Raikage killed my father just because he couldn't tolerate losing. He stood above Yugito. It was fate that mandated us meeting in this matter. And it is your fate to die at my hand. He brought his hand down, aiming for Yugito's heart. Then he felt his wrist snap just after Yugito jumped up, red chakra boiling around her body. Let me guess, you were branded with that seal as well, right? Yugito asked, eyes slitted like a cat's. Neji's jaw hung slack, fighting back the urge to scream in pain. He grunted, how? Your chakra was sealed. You shouldn't be able to move, let alone fight. I know a little bit about being burdened by a seal, Yugito growled. If I were you, crying about my fate because I became a Jinchuriki, I wouldn't be here. The chakra flowing around her burned Neji's wrist and hand, turning it black. Idiot, Yugito continued. Just because you've got a burden, it doesn't mean that you should let it ruin or rule your life. She punched Neji's stomach with all the force she could muster, cracking bone and making Neji cough out blood. Letting go of Neji's wrist, she punched his face, breaking his jaw as he was sent flying towards the arena wall. Yugito caught him with an arm formed from the same caustic chakra surrounding her and brought him back. Just as she was about to slam him into the ground, Neji stabbed her arm with his good hand, releasing himself from her grip. Once he touched the ground, Neji spun on the spot, using the 8 trigrams, heavenly rotation to gain some distance. He gritted his teeth, distancing himself from the pain erupting all across his body. Genma was about to call the match, but Neji turned his head, glaring at him. Do not end the match. I can still fight. His words came out slurred due to his broken jaw. It hurt to breathe, but he couldn't fail. Not until he proved to the Raikage that his fate was set in stone. Yugito had recovered just before she hit the ground and gained control over her tailed beast's chakra, making it turn blue. If I accepted that my fate was to be hated by something outside of my control, I would have never gained the respect and acknowledgement of my village, and I probably would have died a long time ago. You know who helped me realize that? Our village's Raikage. She blocked Neji's attack and crushed his hand. Now what can you do? She let go of his hand and slashed his chest with her own elongated nails, drawing blood and knocking him to the ground. Without your hands, you can't use your gentle fist. How can you be a ninja without your hands? Looks like fate screwed you over. She was about to put him out of his misery, but Genma stood in her path. You win, Genma told her. Get the medics here immediately. Yugito clamped down her tailed beast's chakra and moved to the stands, looking behind her shoulder to see Neji, who had just collapsed, being ferried on a stretcher. She wouldn't have gone that far under most circumstances. He was only a kid, one who was burdened by hatred and a fatalistic attitude. She looked at the Raikage, the man who helped her become a respected kunoichi, kept her from falling into a path of darkness and hate. If it weren't for him, she knew she would have been just like Neji. Over at the cage's stand, the Raikage sat in his chair, clad in his yellow and white Raikage hat, white cage robe and dark gray pants held together by a gold belt. His chiseled chest was left bare and golden bracelets adorned his arms. The Hokage watched Neji and Yugito fight, saying, why would you go to the effort of having an A-ranked Jonin enter the Chunin exams, Lord Raikage? What are you talking about? Yugito is a genin, the Raikage replied. He was confident Yugito would sweep the exams, bringing his village more prestige. As the fight went on, he began to worry when Neji gained the upper hand. That boy is a once-in-a-generation talent, the Hokage remarked. And to think, he isn't even part of the Hyuga clan's main branch, yet he can use its ultimate techniques. The Raikage couldn't help but agree. If Yugito was the age she appeared to be, he would have feared that she would have lost. It was Neji's words that annoyed him, reminding him of his failure to acquire the Byakugan in the first place. Years of reflection had helped him realize his error in overstepping his boundaries and asking for the head of the Hyuga clan's leader. Attempting to harvest the Byakugan was a lost cause. He cradled his face with his hand, feeling a headache bang his forehead as he remembered his failure like it happened yesterday. His headache intensified when he saw Neji knock Yugito to the ground. From what he knew about the Hyuga, they were able to seal off chakra with a touch. And he touched her all over the place. Is everything all right, boss? Darui, his right-hand man asked. Of course, he replied. The boy will get what's coming to him. Not only did Neji remind him of his most humiliating failure, he insulted him. He could see why he hated him, for what he did to his father, but it didn't mean it wasn't infuriating to hear. Arrogant brat. Yugito got up and broke Neji. She hadn't gained perfect control over the two-tailed monster cat, which led to her succumbing to the two-tails' hatred in moments of extreme anger. She managed to regain control before the end. While it was barely noticeable, he knew that she showed mercy when she finished him off without using her tailed beast taijutsu. It's a shame, the Hokage said after Yugito won. Neji was burdened by his hate of the Cloud Village and grief over his father's death. He was unable to move on from it and it led to this. The Raikage kept quiet. He knew he made Neji's life worse, but it was a fact of life. Holding grudges was for fools who couldn't accept their loss and move on from it. He caught Yugito looking at him. She did a good job as far as he was concerned. Neji was merciless, uncompromising and had potential. His most fatal flaw was confining himself to the notions of fate. In the ninja world, there was no such thing. Naruto watched the match between Neji and Yugito unfold, enraptured at the level of skill both Neji and Yugito displayed. As the match went on, he genuinely thought that Neji would pull off the win, especially after he sealed off Yugito's chakra. But Yugito defied Neji's onslaught and destroyed him. He sensed Yugito come in and sit on the sofa, next to Omoi. She was taller than he remembered her being, more like an adult than a child now that he thought of it. Damn, Yugito, wasn't that a bit much? Omoi asked her. Sure, he was pretty tough and out to kill us, but you broke him. And the Hyuga clan could ask for your head to compensate for the Hyuga's humiliation. Yugito gave Naruto a look, studying him before she turned to Omoi. Maybe it was, but if he recovers, I think he'll be alright. Naruto looked away. He caught Gaara staring at Yugito, menacing vibes coming from him even though his face was as impassive as a smooth stone. He didn't want to think about what was waiting for him if he fought any Jinchuriki. So, what do you think your chances are of beating Lee? He asked Shikamaru, who was standing next to him. I don't know, Shikamaru replied, leaning on the railing. It'll probably be a pain, though, win or lose. Naruto smiled at him. Knowing you, you've probably got 100 plans. Shikamaru shrugged. Shikamaru Nara. Rock Lee, your match is up next, Genma said. Naruto said, good luck. Knock 'em dead. Shikamaru cracked a smile and made his way to the arena. Lee looked away from Yugito and jumped over the railing, a solemn look on his face. Once Shikamaru and Lee made it to the arena, Genma said, just a reminder. When I say stop, the match is immediately over. Shikamaru and Lee nodded. Then let the second match begin. Lee stepped into the strong fist stance. I cannot afford to lose against you. I must avenge my teammates' loss. Shikamaru loosened his stance. Fine by me. He avoided Lee's initial jab, attempting to make some distance. He knew that Lee was stronger, faster and better at taijutsu than he was, meaning that he needed to trap him as soon as possible. But Lee wasn't giving him a chance. His punches were hard and his kicks were even harder and he suffered glancing blows as he barely avoided getting hit and knocked out. Even with all his training in getting his speed and reflexes up, Lee was still able to make him look like he was standing still. After jumping over Lee's leg sweep, Shikamaru moved out of the way. Lee's frown deepened and he pulled off his weights. Shikamaru's eyes glinted as held his hands in the rat seal, catching Lee just before he could drop his weights. He was using a variant of the shadow possession technique that allowed him to move without Lee copying his movements, provided he kept his shadow connected to Lee's. How long can you last, holding those weights? He pulled out a kunai, strapping an explosive tag to it. Assuming you can go the distance, I'll just throw this at you. Lee began to sweat, straining from the pressure building in his arms. I will not yield. First gate. Gate of opening. Open. Shikamaru began to struggle. Keeping the kunai in his hands, he did his best to maintain the technique. Lee let go of the weights one finger at a time, before they dropped, breaking the ground beneath it and kicking up dust. Shikamaru was sweating as well. He threw the kunai at Lee, which emitted a concussive explosion instead of an incendiary or fragmentary one once he activated the tag. Lee was still conscious, although he did take damage. Second gate. Gate of healing. Open. The force of Lee opening the second gate broke Shikamaru's hold over him. Lee flashed in front of him and kicked him into the air, only for a log to drop to the ground, while Shikamaru stood a few meters away from Lee. Proctor. I forfeit, Shikamaru said. As long as the gates were open, he couldn't hope to match Lee's speed or strength. He got lucky when he used the replacement technique. Very, very lucky. Lee slumped slightly, hands on his knees as he panted from exertion. Genma smiled. The winner is Rock Lee. The audience's cheers were much louder than they were for Neji and Yugito's match, where the majority were shocked at the brutality of the fight. Nice match, Lee, Shikamaru said, extending a hand. Lee took it, smiling widely. I agree. Together, they walked back to the stands. I like the way that kid thinks, Darui said after the match between Shikamaru and Lee ended. The Hokage smiled. Shikamaru has potential as a leader, if he can keep a level head and assess a situation and adapt to his changes. The Raikage snorted. That is if he wasn't one to retreat when the going got tough. I was looking forward to seeing the 8 gates in action. See, the Raikage's other bodyguard said, he'll be competing next round, Lord Raikage. And since he'll be fighting Yugito, you should see the 8 gates once more. And sometimes, it's better to retreat and regroup instead of pushing to win a lost battle, Jiraiya added, standing behind the Hokage. The Raikage only nodded, looking at the arena once more. It's time for the third match to begin, Genma said. I want Sasuke Uchiha and Gaara to report to the arena so that we can get started. Gaara entered the arena, sand swirling around him as the audience's cheering rose to a fever pitch, most of them eager to see the last Uchiha in action. Minutes passed, yet Sasuke was nowhere to be seen. The Hokage's other bodyguard, Rado Namiyashi, a shinobi with brown spiky hair and a swollen scar on the left side of his face, whispered something in the Hokage's ears. It would seem that Sasuke is not in the village. Why don't you give Sasuke some more time, Lord Hokage? The Kazekage asked. He had kept quiet throughout the exams. His eyes were visible through the veil covering his face, attached to his green and white Kazekage hat. Many of the visiting nobles and dignitaries came here to see the last Uchiha in action. To not allow him to compete would be a grievous insult. If he can't be trusted to show up on time, he can't be trusted to lead teams, Darui pointed out. The Raikage frowned. I agree, the brat should be disqualified. It'll be a good lesson for him when he realizes the world doesn't revolve around him. Jiraiya had seen how hard Sasuke trained and how much he wanted to fight. He was reasonably sure that he wasn't late from his own volition, though. The Kazekage does have a good point. The Hokage frowned. Unfortunately, Sasuke must realize the consequences of his actions. He cannot be rewarded for being late. What about this? Let him compete against the winner of the tournament, the Kazekage suggested. He won't be eligible for promotion, but at least the visiting dignitaries will be satisfied. The Raikage's frown darkened, but he reluctantly accepted the Kazekage's suggestion. The Kazekage smirked underneath his veil after the Hokage had Rado inform Genma about the Kazekage's suggestion. The sand surrounding Gaara began to spin faster after Genma told him and the crowd what was going to happen to Sasuke. Omoi, since you're the only one who doesn't have a scheduled fight, you get the chance to fight Gaara, Genma announced. The Raikage raised an eyebrow. Despite his pessimistic attitude, Omoi was a skilled fighter. And he proved it as he set aside his worries and fought against Gaara. He was able to cut through the Jinchuriki's sand with his katana, but wasn't able to pierce his defense. Stepping out of the way of a pillar of sand, Omoi channeled lightning chakra through his katana and broke out into a run. Letting himself be caught by Gaara's sand, Omoi switched himself out with a log and reappeared behind Gaara, bringing his katana in a motion meant to separate Gaara's head from his shoulders. The sand erupted around Gaara, forcing Omoi to jump away in order to avoid being crushed into a fine paste. He cut through the approaching sand and stepped into Gaara's inner guard, delivering an overhead swing of his katana that cut through Gaara's sand. Gaara was unaffected, as sand flaked off his skin, wrapping around the katana and inching towards Omoi's hands. A thin layer of sand separated the katana from Gaara's shoulder. "Your pitiful attacks cannot harm me. I give up," Omoi shouted, letting go of his katana and backing far away from Gaara. The Raikage clenched his fist. How annoying, he thought. He could see why Omoi quit. He did everything he could to penetrate the Jinchuriki's defense, and when he did, Gaara only caught him. "The winner is Gaara," Genma declared. Omoi returned to the stands. Gaara grunted in pain and put a hand on his head, muttering something under his breath. From what he saw, the Raikage was confident that Yugito could take him. He smirked. Things were finally going his way. Naruto felt Gaara's killing intent fade away after Omoi gave up. Even if he could move fast enough to bypass Gaara's initial defense, he had armor made of sand designed to protect him. It was going to be tough to break Gaara's defense, but he had to find a way. "The next match between Shino Aburame and Kankuro is about to begin," Genma said. Naruto used his sensor to look at Shino. His fellow student hadn't taken his eyes off him since the start of the tournament. It was irritating. He knew it was because he beat Hinata pretty decisively, but it was between him and her. If Shino wanted to hold a grudge because his teammate wasn't willing to fight, that was his problem. Kankuro gave Temari, who was standing next to him, a look before facing Genma. "I quit." Genma frowned. "All right then. I want Naruto Uzumaki and Temari to come down here so we can begin the next match." Temari glided down to the arena on her fan. Naruto took the chance to observe the battlefield, an expansive, dusty field with a single tree surrounded by a lengthy patch of grass on the field's edge, surrounded by massive gray walls, before using the body flicker to get to the arena himself. It was time for him to shine. "Looks like someone's eager," Genma remarked. "Let the match begin." Naruto reminded himself about what he knew about Temari. She was good at wind-style ninjutsu and merciless, taking her brutal beatdown of Tenten as evidence. He frowned. She went too far during that fight, beating someone who was already down, humiliating her. Maybe that was why Shino wanted to fight him, since from a certain point of view, he did exactly the same thing. "What's the matter?" Temari asked, a smirk on her face as she held her fan out in front of her. "If your mind's somewhere else, you might as well quit like my idiot brother." Naruto centered himself. He needed to keep focused. Charging at full speed, he delivered a lunge punch to Temari's face, only for her to swing her fan like a bat and swat his outstretched arm to the side, following up with a perfectly delivered leg sweep. Temari's smirk grew wider. "Think that you'll beat me in taijutsu? Think again, little boy." Naruto dispelled in a cloud of smoke, while the real Naruto emerged from thin air. Putting a genjutsu on the area just before the match started wasn't against the rules, so Naruto took advantage of that. Temari extended her fan and released a gust of wind that arced, cutting the ground beneath it and kicking up dust. Naruto focused and went through hand seals. Wind style. Great breakthrough. A large gust of wind met Temari's attack head-on, while he used the cloud of dust hindering Temari's vision to prepare a genjutsu. The genjutsu was designed to force its target to live through their worst fears. It was a tactic Kurenai recommended. Play on the target's emotions and memories and they'll beat themselves. When the dust cleared, Temari was shivering, eyes bulging out of their sockets. "Gaara, don't, get away, don't kill me, don't," she shrieked, grabbing her head and retreating into herself. Her fan clattered to the ground, forgotten. Naruto approached her. "How does it feel to be humiliated, to have your worst nightmare come to life?" He had seen Tenten a few times during the month-long exam preparation and he learned that she was someone who wanted to become a legendary kunoichi. And while she tried to hide it, she was hurt by the way Temari beat her. And he considered Tenten to be a friend of his. And he needed to make the audience believe he was far more menacing and dangerous than he actually was. We honor the shinobi who died fighting by writing their names on a monument. The Hokage said these matches represented war, so when you hurt Tenten after you beat her, it was like attacking someone you just killed. You dishonored and humiliated her in the worst way possible. Temari was still screaming, but he knew she was listening. Now you know what Tenten felt like. He knocked her out with a chop to her throat, ending her screams of terror and fright and dispelling the genjutsu. He knew the fight could have been a lot different if he let her get started, given how her casual swing of her fan nearly overwhelmed his own wind-style technique, even though he knew he put in more power than she did. And while that speech was pretty overblown, even by his bombastic standard, he needed to create a larger-than-life image. He couldn't expect anyone to underestimate him anymore. The winner is Naruto Uzumaki, Genma said with a smile. Naruto smiled at the praise. And his smile grew wider as he heard the crowd cheer him on for his victory. Through his sensor, he saw Konkuro take Temari and leave like he entered, in a cloud of smoke. We will now have an intermission so that the competitors can rest and recuperate before the next round begins. When Naruto Uzumaki entered the arena, the Raikage leaned forward, looking forward to watching the Blade of Illusion in action. It was why he had his ninja come to the leaf in the first place. Creating a new alliance was only a bonus. Does Naruto interest you? The Hokage asked. The Raikage watched Naruto charge in like an amateur, being punished for underestimating his opponent. From what he heard, Naruto was able to best a Hyuga in taijutsu, so seeing him be bested was irritating. Until Naruto turned the tables on his opponent when he played his hand. I first heard of Naruto from a trusted source, he replied. He was the one who put Naruto's name in our bingo book. He saw Naruto counter the oncoming blast of wind with one of his own, resulting in a cloud of dust forming around the two. When the dust cleared, the girl was muttering about Gaara before screaming. "See, give me your analysis." "See, a genjutsu specialist himself," said. Naruto put a genjutsu over the arena sometime before the beginning of the match, using it to take control of the fight. The genjutsu he used just now targets the target's fears. Gaara was the Jinchuriki from the Sand Village, an insane, cold-blooded killer. Using the Sand Kunoichi's fear like that was an underhanded tactic. He approved. It looks like my source's skills haven't diminished at all. While Naruto was making a speech, he didn't appreciate gloating over a victory, since it was unnecessary to tell a dead man tales. The Hokage and Jiraiya looked on in pride, much to the Raikage's surprise. Just before Naruto knocked out his opponent, the Raikage caught his face and for a second, he thought that the yellow flash had been reborn. Minato Namikaze had blonde, spiky hair and cold blue eyes, just like Naruto did. "That boy's more talented than I thought," Jiraiya remarked with a proud smile on his face. And if Jiraiya's remarks and expressions were any indication, he had a hand in training Naruto, just like how he trained the yellow flash. A small smile formed on the Raikage's face as he connected the dots. If his decisive victory was any indication, Naruto was set to make his own impact on the ninja world, just like his father did. Chapter 22, Battle Royale. When Naruto returned to the competitor's stand, he was greeted by Lee, who had a wide smile on his face. His chest was heaving in and out and his arm shivered when he raised it for a thumbs up. "That was a sublime speech, Naruto. I thank you for defending Tenten's honor." Naruto smiled, grateful for the praise. "No problem." Lee returned to the wall next to the railing and sat down. His breathing began to level out. Naruto looked for a place to stand himself and saw Gaara staring at him with a menacing look, feeling a shiver crawl down his spine. He could only imagine what it was like to be around someone like Gaara, that it would be Temari's worst fear and debilitate her that badly. "Maybe I went too far." The nine-tailed fox made its presence known as it said, "Foolish boy. One can never go too far when fighting an enemy. The only constant respect is born from fear." He couldn't entirely agree that respect and fear went hand in hand. If the only way he could gain respect was by beating his opponents where it hurt the most, what was the point of having that kind of respect? People would be afraid of him the same way the village was. It wasn't worth the prestige or notoriety it brought him if his enemies weren't the only ones who shied away from him. The only difference would be that he was the one who was responsible for his reputation being so negative, not the fourth Hokage. Yugito chuckled as if she was laughing at an inside joke, breaking Naruto out of his reverie. "What do you want?" he asked. She didn't answer him, but her playful grin only grew wider. Naruto shrugged, not wanting to speak to her if she was only going to be vague. Once he made it to his destination, he leaned against the railing, standing close to Lee. With Shikamaru's early exit, Lee was the only ally he had. While he let his thoughts wander, he heard the buzzing of Shino's Kikai increase in tempo. Kurenai didn't give him any information about him for obvious reasons, but he knew that Shino used Kikaichu, bugs that could drain chakra that also lived inside of him. He was also ruthless and Naruto knew he was out for blood. His blood. Beating Temari the way he did helped him understand why Shino felt so strongly about his victory over Hinata. Just then, Shino was standing next to him, hands in the pockets of his jacket. "That was an fascinating speech, Naruto," he said, voice tinged with barely restrained anger. "Why?" "Because it was pertinent to my goal. You humiliated Hinata, beat her when you knew she didn't want to fight." Naruto frowned from annoyance, not wanting to deal with the issue at the moment. "She couldn't separate her feelings for me from the fight. That's her problem, not mine." He grimaced at that. It was the truth but it wasn't the right thing to say. Shino looked at him, his lip curled downwards in what might have been disgust. "We Aburame are good at separating our emotions from the task at hand. With that in mind, you don't have to worry about my resolve to beat you faltering at all." He walked away, the irritating noise coming from his Kikai softening as he did. Naruto sighed. He took the opportunity to meditate, finding his center and focusing on the energies around him, until a buzzing sensation shocked him out of his trance and brought a scowl to his face from irritation. What just happened? It felt like his sensor was being jammed by an outside source. He looked for it the old-fashioned way, but couldn't find anything that could have caused it. He shook his head and meditated once more, aiming to find his center and let go of all his anxieties. "We're now ready to begin the next round," Genma said after he re-entered the arena. "The next match is between Yugito Ni and Rock Lee." Yugito stood up and made her way to the arena. Rock Lee did the same, walking with an energetic pace that wasn't as energetic as it usually was. Once they made it to their starting positions, they squared off. "The same rules apply, but remember that I decide when the match ends," Genma told them. "Let the sixth match of the Chunin exams begin." Lee moved, flashing in front of Yugito in a blink of an eye and driving his fist into her stomach. Before Yugito could counter, Lee disappeared, reappearing behind her and kicking her face with his shin. Yugito staggered, her nose crunching from the strike. "You're playing to win, aren't you?" she asked as blood gushed from her nose. Lee touched the ground. He held his hand outwards, pointing towards the sky. "I had hoped to fight Neji during these exams, but now I may never even interact with him as a fellow shinobi after the beating you gave him." His voice was resigned, until he angrily said, he did not deserve to have his career put in jeopardy just because he had a different way of thinking. Yugito put her fingers to her nose, adjusting it with a pop and wiping the blood from her lip. "His way of thinking was flawed and it pissed me off. Did I go too far? Maybe. But if it helps him realize that putting his faith in destiny was a stupid plan, then everyone wins." "And what if he does not realize that?" Lee retorted, a frown marring his face. "What then?" Lee unfurled his bandages and opened the first gate. He ran circles around Yugito, intending to disorient her so that he could catch her off guard. He took his chance as soon as it came, kicking her high into the air. Moving behind her like a leaf floating in the wind, his bandages wrapped around her, binding them together. Primary Lotus. Lee spun, but the bandages covering Yugito blackened before burning away. He used Yugito's back as a springboard, kicking away and landing on the ground. Using the gates was a double-edged sword, granting immense power at the cost of his health. He hadn't recovered from his first use, but he was confident he could end the fight before the damage set in. Once Yugito landed, she cracked her neck and went through a series of hand seals. Neji's chakra was still affecting her chakra network, and even if she could force the chakra she gathered through, it was like fitting a geyser of water through a hole the size of her eye. Regardless, she managed to use the technique without wasting a lot of chakra and blasted a massive fireball at Lee, who simply jumped over it as sky blue chakra spiraled around him. Third gate. Gate of life. Open. Lee's skin turned red like blood and he brought his leg down on Yugito's head, hitting her arms instead as she raised them upwards in the shape of an X. She pushed, but Lee was moving again, kicking Yugito into the air. Fourth gate. Gate of pain. Open. He kicked Yugito again, ignoring the pain he got from hitting her and being burnt by the fiery blue chakra surrounding her form. She replaced herself with a log to avoid being slammed around. She could heal herself faster than the average shinobi could and had a high pain tolerance, but Lee was testing her limits every time he attacked. The Raikage banned her from transforming into Matabi, the two tails, and she gave herself a bit of a challenge to limit the amount of ninjutsu she used to know more than 5 for every match, not including her tailed beast taijutsu. She already used 2 ninjutsu. She only needed 3 more. Lee had dropped to the ground and charged, hitting Yugito, only for her to fade into an afterimage made with the clone technique. Fifth gate. Gate of limit. Open. Lee swerved around the oncoming fireball and tried to instigate another onslaught of punches and kicks. He connected, but Yugito's lightning clone detonated, shocking him and numbing up his entire body. Yugito smirked and shot out a jet of blue fire at Lee before he could recover, burning him up. I will not yield. Lee gritted his teeth, forcing his body to move. I will defend my ninja way and my teammates' honor. He pushed through the pain and dashed at full speed, extending his right arm and right leg. Reverse Lotus. Just after releasing the fire stream technique, Yugito felt her torso cave in as she bore the brunt of Lee's last-ditch effort. She hit the wall, forming cracks against it from the impact she made, but was still conscious and staggered into a standing position, heaving out blood. Genma frowned in concern for Lee after seeing him collapse soon after he hit Yugito, the effects of the 8 gates and being burned alive taking their toll on him. The winner is Yugito Ni. We need medical attention for Lee, ASAP. Yugito hobbled over to Genma. The blue chakra swirling around her took care of her most serious injuries. I need medical attention too. Is that so? Genma rolled the senbon in his mouth. With a shrug of his shoulders, he said, well, I can't refuse a request like that. She looked at Lee and felt a smile forming on her face. He made her fail her little challenge. Both he and Neji were something else, far more talented than she would have ever expected. It was more fun than she ever expected she would have. Putting constraints on herself so that the exams weren't a total clean sweep led to her having to think on the spot to win. Just like she was taking the Chunin exam for real, all over again. Naruto entered the arena as soon as Yugito and Lee went to the medical bay, Shino following after him. He was told that he had to fight Shino instead of Gaara, which worked for him. Shino was a relatively easier matchup. He could take him. You two ready? Genma asked. Naruto and Shino nodded. Then let the 7th match begin. Naruto used his sensor to find out where the real Shino was, since he knew the Aburame used bug clones to throw his opponents off guard. When he did, the buzzing sensation returned as multiple signals appeared all around Shino, impeding his sensory vision. Biting back the urge to scream, he opened his eyes and saw Shino in front of him, Kikaichu floating around him protectively. You are a sensor, correct? A sensor relies on his or her ability to sense the chakra of others. I learned how to counter that with my Kikaichu. He formed 3 shadow clones, moving alongside them as they began to attack Shino. He was rewarded when his clones took Shino down, only for him to shake and to form into a swarm of Kikai. Naruto turned around and had his clones run around the area, looking for places Shino could hide himself. He looked around as well, moving around to keep Shino from targeting him instead of his clones. The swarm of Kikaichu spread out, crawling towards him. He swapped places with his clone when the swarm got close, but the swarm moved around his clone, ignoring it. Suddenly, he got the memory of a clone that found and fought Shino. He grinned and turned towards the patch of grass, creating 2 more clones that immediately blasted a massive gale of wind at Shino. He hit the wall hard, sliding down and laying there, unmoving. He had his clones apprehend Shino, but as soon as they reached him, the patch of grass exploded. He used his sensor and focused on finding Shino, taking his ability to jam it into consideration. The swarm that constantly pursued him, and only him, had increased in size. Even if he scattered them with blasts of cutting wind, they continued to advance undeterred. His searches with his sensor were proving fruitless as well. There were too many chakra signals that felt like Shino, and the headache he got from Shino jamming his sensor wasn't helping matters at all. Damn it. Most of the time, his fights were lopsided. Either he was completely outclassed or he completely outclassed his opponents. This fight was different because even if he could find Shino, it would probably be a bug clone, or a trap would be waiting for him. The Kikaichu eventually got to him and covered him completely. The drain on his chakra wasn't as bad as he thought it would be. He just needed to wait for the right moment to strike. A cloud of smoke surrounded a nondescript stone, transforming into Shino. It was easy, beating you. Why? While you may have improved, you are still too direct. Shino was so confident that he had won that he gave up the one chance he had at actually winning. He was banking on Shino trying to humiliate him, and it was paying off in spades. At least you're a better fighter than Hinata. Shino frowned from the reminder of his teammate's loss. Perhaps, but do you know what happened to Hinata after you humiliated her? What you did to her confidence? Naruto shook his head, catching his clones running towards Shino. It's not my problem. I know I went too far. But what can I do? Now that he thought about it, he had been so used to fighting against insurmountable odds that he didn't consider that when fighting Hinata. He was so surprised to see her put up such a feeble defense, not capitalizing on opportunities. And all because of a crush. Naruto imagined himself in Hinata's shoes, imagining Kurenai knocking him out without breaking a sweat, even though he didn't want to fight her. For the first time, he felt remorse for taking the fight too far. I know that Hinata didn't want to fight, but what would have happened if she did the same thing in a life or death battle? She would have been killed. It was the main difference between his handling of his opponent and Temari's. He knocked out an opponent who wasn't willing to fight, while Temari figuratively kicked Tenten while she was down. Shino shrugged, dismissing his argument like he would a bug. That might be so, but the damage has been done. I know. I can fix that afterwards, but right now, Naruto grinned. I have a match to win. Naruto threw a kunai at Shino's shoulder, boosting its speed with wind chakra. It clipped his shoulder just as he stepped to the side. Before he could counter, Naruto's clones ambushed him and knocked him out with a barrage of punches and kicks. The winner is Naruto Uzumaki. Genma declared. Shino's Kikaichu went to their master, leaving Naruto with drained, but manageable chakra reserves. Just before he could bask in the afterglow of the cheering audience, Gaara entered the arena in a swirl of wind and sand. What are you doing here? Genma asked, annoyed. There's supposed to be an intermission. I don't care, Gaara replied, standing next to Genma. Start the match. Naruto ate a soldier pill, feeling the boost to his chakra reserves as soon as he did. Yeah, why wait? Genma sighed. Let Shino leave the arena first. He had the medics escort Shino to the medical bay. Soon after, Yugito reappeared in the arena in a burst of flames next to the contestants. Is it time for the match to start? Genma only shrugged. She grinned. Fantastic. Now I get to beat the Blade of Illusion in his own backyard. Are you going to let the Jinchuriki of an inferior-tailed beast walk all over you? The nine-tailed fox taunted. Naruto shook his head. His sensor was back to normal and he felt Yugito's chakra flaring. Her chakra flow was back to normal, freed from Neji's foreign chakra. You're not going to win. His eyes turned red as the nine-tails chakra flowed through his chakra network, pressing down on both Gaara and Yugito. The air became thicker as Gaara and Yugito rose to the bait, the chakra of the one-tails and two-tails spiking to match Naruto and the nine-tails challenge. Just as the tension was about to reach a crescendo, the chakra of the other tailed beasts faded away. Naruto closed his eyes and let the flow of the nine-tailed fox's chakra dissipate. When his eyes opened, they were their normal blue. Believe it. Genma smirked as the tension in his frame ebbed away. Looks like we're going to have one hell of a finale, aren't we? Last one standing wins, got it. The three Jinchuriki nodded. Let the final match between Naruto Uzumaki, Yugito Ni and Gaara be. A tornado of wind emerged from the side, revealing Kakashi and Sasuke. While Kakashi was as nonchalant as ever, Sasuke was scowling. His wardrobe had changed as well, primarily black with bandages covering his arms. We aren't late, are we? Sasuke asked. Unfortunately, you are. Sasuke gritted his teeth, seething in anger. You're disqualified, but don't worry, you get to fight the winner of this match. You won't be eligible for promotion, but at least you get a chance to show everyone your moves. Sasuke was about to walk away, but Kakashi put a hand on his shoulder. Now, Sasuke, let's not do anything rash, Al. Sasuke shrugged off Kakashi's grip and leveled a furious glare at him. Shut up. I trained as hard as I could for these exams, but you were the one who told me to wait instead of letting me go on my own. And your laziness cost me my shot at being promoted. Kakashi felt no regret. Sasuke was nowhere near ready to fight against Gaara and win. Even if he didn't win, he knew he would be badly injured or even killed. Whatever you say. Sasuke faced Naruto and his face softened as he did. You'd better win. He gave him a smirk. You're the one I want to fight the most. Naruto smiled, actually surprised at the way Sasuke was treating him in spite of everything that happened. Or maybe it was because of everything that happened that explained it. Thanks for the support, Sasuke. Enough interruptions, Genma said, slightly exasperated. Rado came next to him, whispering something in his ear. Genma's eyes widened before a small smile came to his face. Once Rado left, Genma pulled out 2 pairs of Senbon, 2 being longer than the others. I want you to pull a Senbon from my hand. You'll be paired up with the person who has the same sized Senbon you do. Why? Yugito asked. Looks like the rules changed for this match. It'll be a tag team fight. Same rules apply, but this time you'll have to work with your partner to beat the opposing team. It's designed to test your ability to work with others in an unexpected situation. Does that mean I get the chance to be promoted? Sasuke asked hopefully. No, you don't. Sasuke frowned, a dejected look spreading across his face that made Genma wince. But hey, at least you'll get exposure so that your services are requested by the clients here. Sasuke shrugged and pulled out the Senbon from Genma's hand. Naruto, Yugito and Gaara followed his lead. You'll get a couple of minutes to talk to your partner. Use it to learn about it and make plans to beat your opponents. Naruto looked at his Senbon, a short one, and approached Yugito, knowing the size of her Senbon. Looks like we're partners. Yugito frowned. We are, aren't we? She sighed and Naruto saw a small smile come to her face. In that case, I'll introduce myself. I'm Yugito Ni. My main skill is using Matabi's chakra. You mean the 2 tails, right? Yeah, she replied. Don't you know me being a you-know-what is an S-rank secret, Naruto whispered. So I can't just blurt it out for everyone to hear. Yugito shrugged. Fine. I'm pretty confident I could take all 3 of you at once if I cut loose, but I like making challenges for myself, so I won't. Is that why you're a lot taller now? Naruto had to look up to meet Yugito's face. She was about as tall as Kurenai was, if not taller. Yugito nodded again, a proud smile coming to her face. I used a transformation seal to make myself shorter. Came up with the idea myself. Neji screwed it up when he cut off my chakra network, but the medics made me right as rain. My area of speciality is taijutsu, with a few ninjutsu to round things out. Most of them are the wide, explosive variety instead of the narrow, precise kind. Naruto smiled, pleased with the way things were going for him, that he didn't have to fight against Yugito. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I specialize in genjutsu, but I know a couple of wind-style ninjutsu as well. My taijutsu's nothing special. I'm looking forward to working with you. Instead of fighting you. Yugito put a hand out to shake. If that's so, then let's shake on it, partner. Naruto shook her hand and smiled at her. It faded as something that bothered him about the 2 tails Jinchuriki came to his mind. Just one question. Why do all this? Yugito chuckled. Felt like giving myself a challenge, and Lord Raikage wanted a Jinchuriki to represent the Cloud Village during these exams. Our other Jinchuriki was unavailable, so he chose me and prepared everything so I wouldn't have any problems with your village. Naruto let go of her hand. Thanks for telling me. Now I get to ask you a question. Her voice softened into a whisper. Which one do you hold? Naruto held out 9 fingers, bringing an interested smile to her face. Do you know its name? Its name, Naruto repeated. Time's up, Genma said. Just as he stepped forward, Yugito bent down to whisper something in his ear, putting an enthusiastic smile on his face after hearing her plan. "You four ready?" They nodded. "Then you can start." Gemna jumped back like he did for every single match just as Sasuke activated the Sharingan. Gaara uncorked his gourd and Naruto and Yugito flashed through hand seals. A gout of blue flames emerged from Yugito's mouth, Naruto's wind boosting it and widening its area of effect. Naruto was surprised at how much stronger the jutsu was as it impacted with a wide shield-like dome made of sand that protected both Gaara and Sasuke. The fires roared for what felt like forever before dispersing. The top of Gaara's sand shield glimmered in the light and as it collapsed, the sound of glass shattering reverberated across the arena. Before he could marvel at the effect his and Yugito's collaboration made, Sasuke moved in faster than he ever did and he raised an arm to block his kick. Yugito jumped up and was about to punch Sasuke's face, but a pillar of sand shot towards all three of them, forcing them to jump out of the way. "Don't try to take my prey, Uchiha," Gaara said in a gravelly voice. Sasuke scoffed, having jumped in the opposite direction Naruto and Yugito did. "Don't tell me what to do," he blurred in and out, charging towards Naruto at full speed. Naruto raised a hand to block Sasuke's lunge punch, but realized a second too late that it was a feint for a bone-crunching uppercut, one that Naruto was just barely able to avoid by rolling with the attack and jumping away. He pulled out a handful of shuriken and flung them at Sasuke, throwing 3 kunai at Gaara soon after to keep his sand in place and give Yugito an opportunity to attack Gaara with a swipe of her fiery cat's paw. Sasuke deflected the shuriken with a kunai while Gaara's sand leapt up to defend him. Naruto moved forward, using the shuriken as a distraction to land a roundhouse kick on Sasuke's face, one that he was able to avoid the worst by twisting his head to the side. The attack still connected and Sasuke was sent spinning. He and Yugito met up a fair distance away from the opposing team to regroup. "So, what's the plan?" Yugito asked. While Sasuke wasn't as fast as he was, his Sharingan and superior taijutsu allowed him to make up the difference in speed. His genjutsu wouldn't work on him because of his Sharingan, and while he had a feeling that he could overpower his fireball jutsu or that jutsu that shot out those fireballs with the wind style, great breakthrough or his other wind style technique, it wouldn't help him beat Sasuke's fire dragon jutsu. "Really?" Yugito asked after Naruto told her about his observation. "I could get Gaara with my most powerful lightning jutsu, but it'll take time to set up. All you have to do is wear down Sasuke. His speed is the kind that..." Sand coiled towards them, arcing upwards before diving towards them like a falling star. Sasuke suddenly appeared and kicked him away from the sand, while Yugito jumped away. Using his sensor, Naruto saw the chakra surrounding Sasuke's legs, chakra that was exerted at a greater volume than anywhere else on his body. Naruto got the gist of what Yugito wanted to tell him. Sasuke continued to chase him and he distracted him with a clone, returning to Yugito's side. "I think I can wear him out. He can't keep up that speed forever." Yugito grinned. "Just wear him out so I can knock him down. Then, we'll take care of Gaara." Naruto nodded and got the memory of Sasuke beating his clone with a shuriken trick. "Let's get started." They split up and Sasuke moved in, throwing a batch of kunai at Naruto, who blocked with a burst of wind. Just before Sasuke could close the distance between them, Gaara's sand erupted around them, forcing them to back away. Naruto suffered a gash on his left thigh after taking too long to escape Gaara's attack. "You will not escape my sand, Naruto Uzumaki," Gaara shouted, holding his hand out to increase the speed of his sand. "I will kill you, and when I do, my existence will be that much greater." Naruto held his hands in the cross seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 25 clones appeared and scattered, buying him time to avoid Gaara's sand and get Sasuke into position. While Sasuke used shuriken, kunai and taijutsu to dispel his clones, Gaara beat his clones as his sand spread out, forming spears and other constructs that caused a painful, violent death for anyone who was caught in the psychotic Jinchuriki's thrall. Gaara had an intense gleam in his eyes, excitement evident in his tone as he said, "No matter what you do, you cannot win. We are alike, you and I, but my existence is greater than yours." Soon enough, only 5 Narutos remained. 3 of them began to race through hand seals, leaving them exposed for Gaara's sand to crush them. Meanwhile, Sasuke chased one of the other 2, who began to run away. Naruto waited for the right moment to strike, and just as he felt Sasuke's chakra spike, he turned and rapidly flashed through hand seals. Wind style. Violent wind palm. His hands were surrounded with wind chakra just as he slammed them into Sasuke's stomach, pushing him away with the force of a cyclone. The other Naruto caught Sasuke and held his arms together. Now, Yugito. Blue fire wrapped around Yugito's hand as she jumped in front of Sasuke, striking him with her cat's paw. Screaming in pain, Sasuke was sent skidding along the ground. Gaara had destroyed 3 of Naruto's clones, and the force from Yugito's attack ended the life of Naruto's 4th clone. The real Naruto felt his chakra supplies begin to run out from a combination of a lot of factors. Fortunately, he still had quite a bit of chakra left. He looked at Sasuke, who was barely conscious and badly burnt, his shirt incinerated from Yugito's attack, and flashed through hand seals. His Sharingan was deactivated, so he knew it would work out. For a split second, his eyes flashed red. That should keep him out of the fight, Naruto said after hearing Sasuke whimper. It made his insides churn. Turning to Yugito, he said, "I'll keep Gaara busy. You set up that jutsu of yours." "Sure." Naruto dashed towards Gaara and looked at him, seeing the bloodlust in his eyes. "What is your reason for existing, Naruto Uzumaki?" Sand shot up, blocking the shuriken Naruto threw at him. "The only true existence comes from killing others, proving your superiority as you crush and rip everything that stands in your way to shreds." Naruto jumped over oncoming waves of sand, ducked under sand spears and dodged sand shuriken as he tried to beat Gaara's defense. "Do you believe that friends will help fill the void in your heart, the one that longs for a reason for living? In the end, even the ones closest to you will betray you. I filled the void in my heart by learning to live for myself, love myself and only myself." Naruto darted behind Gaara, his fist caught by sand. Just before he could be caught, he cut the sand and jumped away, spreading the distance between him and Gaara. "I filled the void by killing everyone who stood in my way, and I'll kill anyone who tries to keep me from validating my existence. That is why, I will never." Lightning style. Heavenly spear. Yugito shouted. A blinding flash emerged, revealing a blue bolt of forked lightning that destroyed Gaara's sand shield and pierced his chest. Naruto took the opportunity to rest, taking in deep breaths as he made it back to Yugito. "The fight isn't over yet," the nine-tailed fox told him. "It's only a matter of time before Shukaku wakes up." Blood. Gaara's scream was blood-curdling, hysterical as he held a bloody hand in front of him. "It's my blood." A tornado of sand surrounded him. When the tornado dissipated, Gaara had undergone a gruesome transformation. The top half of his body was covered in sand, forming 2 massive arms-lined blue markings that had claw-tipped hands. A spiked tail grew from the base of his back, flicking back and forth. His eyes had black sclera and a yellow 4-pointed star on a black surface for pupils. A deranged grin formed on his sandy face, revealing fang teeth. "I will never disappear." Naruto panted, nervousness overcoming him from the ominous presence of Gaara's killing intent. It was like fighting Orochimaru all over again, only that Yugito was with him and could make the difference. He checked Sasuke's condition, finding that his breathing had slowed down. Gaara crouched down and jumped, closing the distance between him and Naruto and Yugito before punching the ground beneath Naruto and Yugito, just barely missing them as they bolted in opposite directions. Yugito threw a kunai at Gaara and smiled when it sunk into Gaara's armor. "Naruto, I'll hold him off." She activated her tailed beast taijutsu. "It'll be easier to get past his defense this time." As Yugito and Gaara clashed, Naruto looked for weak points. Gaara's lower half wasn't covered in his sand, and without the automatic defense his sand shield gave him, he was more vulnerable to attacks than he ever was. Especially behind his tail. Strapping an explosive tag to a kunai, Naruto formed many clones and had them aid Yugito as she burned Gaara's sand away bit by bit, even as it reformed. Naruto went through hand seals, using the Sakura illusion to stall Gaara to set up his attack, even as his clones were being destroyed left, right and center. Gaara staggered, but managed to regain his balance and swat Yugito away with a swipe of his thick sand claw. Just like he suspected, the genjutsu failed to hold. Even so, Gaara's momentary loss of control gave his clone the opportunity to jab the explosive kunai below Gaara's tail. With a flick of his tail, Gaara defeated the clone, but the damage was done as the tag ignited. Gaara screamed as his tail was destroyed, but remained standing as more sand coalesced and formed a new tail. In a furious rage, Gaara crushed the rest of Naruto's clones with the fury of a vengeful-tailed beast. When the dust created by the rampage cleared, sand covered all of Gaara's body, save for his legs. Excellent, Gaara growled in a guttural voice. In moments like these, when the prey is about to die, what it does to save itself determines its true worth in this world. And you, Naruto Uzumaki, he laughed, a harsh, cruel sound coming from his mouth. You will truly validate my existence. Don't forget about me, Yugito said before slashing his torso with her cat's paw and following up with a powerful kick that sent the Jinchuriki flying. Naruto grimaced from the fact that even explosions wouldn't keep Gaara down forever. Unless Yugito could speed up her ninjutsu output, unless they could hurt him faster than they could recover, it looked like they. Naruto. Startled by the sudden shouting of his name, Naruto turned around and saw Sasuke making a beeline towards him. His face was pulled into an expression of pure hatred and lightning was coiled around his right hand, creating the sound of 1,000 chirping birds. Sasuke was moving too fast and was too close to him for him to properly dodge the technique. He knew how powerful the Chidori was, after seeing Kakashi use it back in the Land of Waves. He looked at Sasuke's face, watched his visage of anger and hate and pain twist his features into something almost unrecognizable. But then, he began to slow down and the chirping sound began to fade away as a look of regret came over him. Unfortunately, he couldn't stop his momentum completely, and while his hand wasn't wreathed in lightning, his fist still buried itself in Naruto's stomach. His furious scowl became a stricken frown. I never thought that you'd stoop so low, to use my family's death against me. Sasuke's voice was soft and Naruto could hear the betrayal in his voice. What? Before Naruto could ask him what he was talking about, Yugito knocked out Sasuke with a chop to the back of his neck. She held her fingers next to Naruto's face and snapped them. Focus. Naruto blinked rapidly. Yeah, sure. The only explanation he could think of was that the genjutsu he used on Sasuke was the same as the hell-viewing jutsu he used on Temari, but that wasn't his plan. The hell-viewing illusion was the last illusion he wanted to use. Sasuke had tried, in his own way, to protect him from Gaara's sand while still fighting with him. And he showed him his worst fears, his worst nightmare. Disgust was what he felt. Even if he didn't really like Sasuke all that much, he accepted him being a Jinchuriki and that made them friends in his mind. He felt Gaara's chakra spike and saw him move into a crouching position, almost unaffected by Yugito's attack, and knew he had to end the fight as soon as possible. Give me some of your chakra. I thought you didn't want to reveal this ability of yours yet, the nine-tailed fox remarked, although Naruto knew it was enjoying the fact that he had to rely on it. He won't be going down anytime soon. And everyone else is falling asleep, see. Throughout the arena, there were people asleep in their seats, affected by a foreign chakra that kept them docile. There was some commotion around the cage's box as well, as a purple barrier formed around it. Naruto felt the nine-tailed fox's chakra surge throughout his chakra network, and he used it, combining it with his own chakra as he sent a genjutsu to Gaara. Sleep. He didn't really expect the genjutsu to work on Gaara, since he managed to shake off the last illusion Naruto inflicted on him. If for some reason he fell under his spell, Gaara would be in for a peaceful sleep. He never expected Gaara to freeze up. He never expected that his corrupted eyes would turn back to their normal turquoise. He never expected the sand surrounding him to just collapse. And he didn't expect him to look around, eyes wide and frantic and confused. What did you do to my mother? Gaara asked, frightened beyond belief. Naruto knew that using the Nine Tails chakra would boost his abilities dramatically, but he expected Gaara to break through it, due to the fact that his and Shukaku's chakra were in constant contact. Unless, Naruto nearly laughed at the ludicrous possibility his mind came up with. But the more he thought about it, the more likely his crazy thought was what actually happened. Instead of affecting Gaara, Naruto somehow affected Shukaku and forced the tailed beast to sleep. He turned his attention to Gaara and approached him. Gaara couldn't run away, with his back against the wall. A look of utter terror crossed his features. How are you different from me? Naruto sighed and crouched, making eye contact with Gaara. I don't need to prove myself by killing others, because I know that I'm accepted and trusted by my friends. I live for them, so that I can be acknowledged and feel fulfilled. You haven't been betrayed? Gaara asked, his voice lacking the bitter spite or tinge of bloodlust Naruto had grown used to. Mizuki's face flashed in his mind. Only one time, by someone who wanted to use me for his own purpose. A small smile came to Naruto's face and he felt Yugito approach them. But you know what? There was someone who was willing to put their life on the line to save me. The image of Iruka taking the shuriken meant for him entered his mind. He was, still as a good guy and a good friend. My first real friend. And then I found other friends, and whenever I'm around them, I don't feel empty or worthless or unloved. I can't imagine being betrayed by any of them. Yugito had sat on a single knee, looking at Gaara intently, before a small smile came to her face. We both know what it's like to be hated or feared for something that we didn't choose to have. But instead of focusing on killing everyone, why not be friends with them? There has to be someone, anyone who'll give you a chance. All you have to do is try and find them. Her smile widened as a chuckle escaped her lips. And even if you can't, why not be friends with your tailed beast? It'll take time, but it's worth it. Trust me on that. Gaara blinked owlishly. He paused, taking in a deep breath, but no words would come out. I surrender, he finally said. His eyelids flickered up and down and he drifted off, falling asleep. And with that, Naruto and Yugito left Gaara. Feeling and hearing ongoing skirmishes around the arena and as far as his sensor could stretch, Naruto prepared himself for another fight. He would do his best to defend the village and the few people that accepted him from anyone who dared to destroy it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.